Hey guys, what's going on? Inception here, and welcome to another video. Ladies and gentlemen, today we have the new Shapeshifters Team 2 tier list to do. Guys, this tier list, I always have to mention this in the beginning of the video. If I put someone in the S or the A tier in this tier list, and then you compare it to another tier list, it doesn't work that way. We're just comparing it to the current team of what it is, because when I did that one time, people hated it, so that's not going to be done again. So I always have to mention that because people always forget about that, okay? So, there's a few cards here that I just didn't end up trying because obviously when I do reviews, sometimes I have players already in the squads. I'm like, you know, I'm going to put them there, and then if I get highlights, cool. If not, then whatever. But this was one of those weeks where I played enough personally on this game. You know, sometimes the gameplay kind of just doesn't make me want to push more, you know, because it's atrocious. Anyways, for this tier list, I'm going to go ahead and add some players that I just didn't end up trying out, like Ochoa, Pepe Reina. I'm not going to lie and be like, yeah, guys, I tried them out and I know what they're like. I have no idea. And I know that's going to be fodder usable right away. Also didn't use that. Yeah, so yeah, just gonna do that right away because I think people do a lot of tier lists and they never really try out the cards for some of them, and you guys know I basically try out all of them. These cards, the center back I had on my review account and the cam I had on someone's account, and I just ended up putting them in the 4-3-2-1 formation and basically just went from there. So it was good because I was playing like regular FIFA for the most part for some of those. Okay, so as a tier list goes, I'm gonna put players higher, lower, depending on who I'm putting in certain positions. Okay, so the first card that we are going to have here is going to be, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. Is it Adeyemi? Adeyemi? We're just gonna call him Adeyemi. This card, I don't mind adding into the A tier category or even like the high tier B. I would say high tier B, low tier A, like that kind of area, because this card, by the way, is ignore if they have like the crown and stuff, because this is from me downloading it on Footbin, and sometimes it has it, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, just weird sometimes. This card is in fact not a premium shapeshifters card. If it was, it definitely would have brought the value up significantly. But this card is pretty decent to use, right? For the meta of the game and how it generally performs. If you were to provide this card with an anchor chemistry style and you have some defensive capabilities, you can use this card as the attacking oriented center mid, or being played over on that left hand side, being as a left mid, being someone that can attack and defend really nicely for you. A lot of people could potentially, you know, give him a hawk chemistry style as well, depending on what they're feeling the most, right? Obviously, if they find him getting into situations where they, you know, attack more often with him, then obviously giving him a hawk could be more ideal, because he does still have decent defensive stats for the play style they're going to play with. But I think for longevity, I'm going to put him at a B tier, but it's a high B tier, because for longevity, I don't see people using him that much, but the card is pretty decent. Like, they did a pretty decent job with him, okay? Okay, so Buffon. Again, when we do the tier list, there's variables to consider, and I'm going to explain every variable, okay? I'm going to put Buffon at the S tier because I think the price of the SBC for what card you're getting in game is a W. I think the way that this card performs in game is really good, and I think for 60k, it's a very, very good price. It would have been a completely different situation if they never provided the extra links with the card on the Shapeshifters premium part. But we're talking about a very good center back in the game. Like, I'm being very nitpicky when I talk about the pace, but the pace, yeah, it's good. It's still good. I'm being nitpicky because people are trigger merchants in this game, and I wish every center back was 99 acceleration, 99 sprint speed. But that's obviously not going to be the case, right? But as an SBC for 60k, this Buffon is really good. The 5-star weak foot, fantastic. Medium high work rates, high and average body type, 6'4", base mid 90s area for physical stats on a shadow chemistry style, making him a lengthy. Like, it's a good card, right? It's definitely a good card. The price value is what really shoots it up there as well. 60k for this card is incredibly good value. Definitely a card worth picking up. Check, we're going to add into the A tier category. As a physical type striker, when we put players in the S tier, it would be a comparison to someone like R9 or CR7, right? Those are physical types attackers that are S tier no matter what. With Check, when you use Check's card, Again, they did a really good job with him because he is a physical type striker. So it's weird when people come to me and they're like, oh, but he feels sluggish. Yeah, no wonder he's a lengthy player that has 84 agility. That's kind of the whole point of the card, okay? So it's really weird when people come to me and they say those things, unless the card already has the base card stats. Because in this year's game, working with players like this on a lengthy is very solid. And Petr Cech actually plays very well in game as a striker. There's a lot of people that have a lot of trouble facing this card because he genuinely performs really well in game. The only reason why he's not being added into the S tier category is because of the dribbling, right? So obviously in his case, it is very ideal to provide him with a lengthy accelerates to really bring out the capabilities of the card. You know, I had him on a hunter chemistry style and the pace was pretty nice to work with. Very good stride to his run. But obviously you do have to work with the left stick dribbling from time to time. But still a very solid card, a really cool SBC. Definitely liked him a lot. A high A tier card. It's a good SBC. I was okay with this completely. You know, as a physical type striker, really, really cool card to use. But in the S tier category, it would have to be like the Ronaldos and that kind of stuff, right? Who else is physical type attacker? I can't think of anybody right now at the top of my head, but yeah. Well, the reason why I'm doing the tier list differently now is because of people complaining the Serie A tier list, right? Because I wouldn't rate Leão to Mbappe level, so people are like, how do you not put Leão at S tier? So now that we're doing it individually from the teams, yeah, Leão would be S tier, you know what I'm saying? So that's why we're changing it up a little bit here, okay? Anywho, next up we have is De Jong. I'm personally putting De Jong in the S tier, low S tier side, I would say. But he is really nice. Guys, I need to be able to play like good, authentic football, okay? And this De Jong card, they did a really good job with. I like how he's all over the pitch consistently on a hunter chemistry style, being able to provide him with shooting capabilities at an 84 for shot power is a really huge variable to work with, because if I'm taking shots outside of the 18-yard box with this card, he's really good at hitting them, obviously, right? Because the whole meta of the game with the outside foot shot being effective if your shot power is 89 or below, right? And De Jong is no different, because what's important with him is that if I had to provide him with a shadow chemistry style, then I would be like, yeah, you know, I'll put him in the A tier category. But the fact that the card has shooting capabilities for a card that can be used in multiple different ways, because listen, if you give this card a hunter chemistry style, because of the 5-star weak for 4-star skills, fantastic dribbling capabilities, you can use him anywhere in the midfield position, which is amazing, right? So it's a very good card. Definitely enjoyed using him. I was using him on Aaron's account for the review on Buffon as well, and De Jong was just doing stuff for me when I wasn't even using him properly. I was just like doing whatever, you know, like the AI and stuff was really, really nice. So definitely don't mind adding De Jong into the S tier. A tier category to the very top as well, like that type of area for De Jong for sure. Dembele, one of the best cards, probably the best card in Shapeshifters Team 2. I thought Dembele was absolutely nasty. You know what's funny is that gameplay was rough, as it usually is, right? And when you use Dembele, he just compensates, man. And he compensates in everything. Like, there's really nothing that, like, I was like, I don't like this on the card, you know? Because I always mentioned to people before, right? With Dembele's card, his dribbling is just too poorly formatted. It's just really bad, right? From the previous versions. But I want you to see the agility and the balance boost, right? Look at the difference that they gave the new version of his card, because it's so important to do that for base card stats on cards like this, because then you could just provide them with like a hawk chemistry style, and you don't have to worry about improving the dribbling. That's always been a problem with Dembele's card, which just isn't on this one. Like, this is a full meta card, 100%. Like, I would be very surprised if pro players didn't end up liking him. He is very, very good in regards to everything. Attacking AI, shooting, passing, everything just works out really nicely on this card. He is an absolute top S tier category. If there was like a category here of what I was doing, he would be in the S star tier. Like, that's where I would put him. It'd be S star tier, because that's where he would belong, in my opinion. Samuel Eto'o, both versions of Samuel Eto'o's card is going to go into the S tier. Again, rated higher than these guys here. That can be argued into the high tier A. Samuel Eto'o's card, EA did a fantastic job with. Whatever version of this card you get, it doesn't matter. He is a monster. He's genuinely good at doing everything. Like, he's really, really good at doing everything. Couldn't care less about like the physical side of things like that much, but like even still, he's amazing at that too. I didn't feel like I had to make him an explosive or I had to give him like a dribbling boost. This card on a Hawk chemistry style is so good that when I was using him in game, I didn't know what foot he was. I was like, I didn't even realize, because what happened was when I was building the team for Samuel Eto'o, I just needed a left-sided player because of the other players I was reviewing while playing the regular gameplay, right? I think I was like doing foot champs as well. I think we won all the games in foot champs because of this card being in the team. And, you know, using this card in the squad, everything, attacking AI, the shooting, like I didn't know what foot he was because I just chose this one because he's left wing on the left side, right? If it was right wing on the right side, I would have just chosen that one too. But both of the cards are the exact same thing, right? If you take a look at the difference, it's the exact same card. The only difference is that if you go with the right wing version, he is a left-footed card, which to be fair, this card is going to be the preferable option because if you take a look at the two differences, like the like and dislike ratio between the two, it makes a lot of sense because there's not that many right-sided players that are left-footed that have a 5-star weak foot like Samuel Eto'o, right? That's a really, really huge variable to work with. And I think that's the only reason why he's more expensive by a little bit, right? Like 2.3, 2.37. Oh, they're the same thing. The right wing should be a little bit more expensive just because of that variable. I will say, personally, I think that's a very important mention. But if you guys watched the review for that card, he was amazing. Definitely liked him a lot. Garincha, I'm going to add into the S tier, but he is a low S tier card, okay? Low S tier card because Garincha in-game, in my opinion, right, should perform better than what you see. The card is fantastic. If you end up packing this bad boy and he's in your squad, he's still going to be good. When I talk about these things, people always say, oh, immediately he's bad. No, listen, please, okay? The card he should perform better than what he looks like, 100%. He has weird variables to this card, and the reason why he is sometimes weird is because of the short and lean minus body type. The short and lean minus body type causes inconsistencies on the card, right? People have mentioned to me in the comment section sometimes that short and lean minus is actually a thinner version of lean. And if that is true, then the body type is broken because short and lean minus in game is a combination of agility as well as physical. When I say a combination of agility and physical, the agility you notice more from like the L1, R1 dribbling, right? But when you're actually left stick dribbling with a card, that's where it feels more physical most of the times because it depends on the card and the stats that they give and stuff and how EA formats them, right? It's always different with some of these types of cards. But his body type does make him a little bit weird sometimes, okay? So I do have to mention that. It's an A tier card because he meets the base minimum requirements to be a good card in this game, right? Work rates, high, medium, short, and lean. Like, he has the 5-star skills, 4-star weak foot. He has base card stats for pace, shooting, passing, dribbling, and some physical. So he's still going to be up there, right? But he's going to be on the lower side of the S tier, in my opinion, okay? Okay, so Giroud, I don't mind putting him at the B tier. I think I put Bremer at the A tier, and I'm okay with Bremer at an A tier compared to Giroud. I liked Giroud's card. I didn't mind him whatsoever. I thought the card was pretty decent, but he feels like a B tier card, you know? When I was using him, you guys know how I am with center backs. I have to mention this on a consistent basis. Cards need to be full meta at center back. You know, these people are annoying to play against with the same exact meta play style the entire time. And when I was using Giroud, I was like, you know what? This is a pretty cool card to get because obviously people will use him in the higher divisions because he provides you very good links. And he's a left-footed player on the left-hand side. So that type of stuff is great. He's a 35k card, so he's not too expensive to be used in that position. But I was even going to do a review for him because I played with him quite a bit, actually. It was during the Shapeshifters Cup. And as I was using him, I was like, I'd rather just get somebody else. Like, personally, I was like, I'd rather just use a different player. Now, what's interesting is that some people could argue and say that he is an A tier category card. I don't mind adding him into the B tier. Again, B tier and up, people will use in the meta of the game. Fodder and usable lower, like, I'm more doubtful, in my opinion, right? I'm a little bit more doubtful. Okay. Next up is going to be Doozy's card. So Doozy is an interesting one, right? So the variable that I always told people about when it comes to a card like this is how you line him up, okay? So obviously, if he's being played in the center back position and then you provide him the shadow chemistry style, in my genuine opinion, you shouldn't actually use him as a center back, okay? You should use him as a center back to rotate into the CDM position, which is very easy to do on this card because he's a center back being played in a 5-back formation while you have your actual center back being played in the center mid position. So a lot of the times when it comes to the card that we're going to mention later on, Milinkovic-Savic, you would just do the switch between the two, right? Milinkovic-Savic would be switched from center mid to center back, and then Guendouzi would be switched to the CDM position. Now, generally speaking, about this Guendouzi card, I wasn't crazy impressed with him, right? If I was going to put him into the tier list category, he would be a mid-tier, low-tier A to a high-tier B, right? One of the things I want to mention is that as a center back for this card, right? First off, I'd rather them just take off the agility of the card and make him a lengthy player, because a lengthy would have added a huge variable to the card, which makes sense for them to give you a gameplay objective Guendouzi card. But it's not that big of a deal, guys, because with controlled in the CDM position, it's perfectly fine, right? I'm just saying, though, that on a lengthy, it definitely would have pushed the card to more heights that I definitely would have appreciated a little bit more. The card it doesn't perform as well as previous years, I would say. In previous years, I think he was a little bit better, personally. I think he had a little bit of a thing to him that was a little bit off, but it's still a pretty cool card to get, right? The links that you can get in your team, all that kind of stuff. Don't mind that whatsoever. So, looking at Giroud, considering how decent Giroud is, I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to put him here, B tier, just because of I'm okay with the A tier, like low tier A tier side. You know what I'm saying? Like low tier A tier side. But it's a good card. It's a good enough card. Obviously, in the top tier divisions, people will use him. But with CDMs, like there's people are going to use like different types of cards, in my opinion. Okay, Gvardiol, Gvardiol. I don't say his name exactly. I'm going to put him in the A tier. Main concern with the card, honestly, was the links. I don't know why EA didn't provide him with a nice Shapeshifters premium. I think it definitely would have added to the card really nicely, because this card genuinely has the right base capabilities, right? In game, he actually performs really well. If you decide to use a card like this as your stay back cover center player, as your center back, if you're rotating it, like let's say for instance, right, you had Guendouzi's card, and then you have, I'm gonna put this over here, right? If you had Guendouzi's card and you had him at center back, and then you had Gvardiol in your team and you wanted to switch them in game, that would be a huge variable to work with. Guendouzi on a controlled, it's not ideal to use as a center back. Lengthy is very important there. Lengthy in general for those types of players, I would feel like is very important. But for Gvardiol, again, they gave it to him, and his running animation is very, very good. His positioning is very good. It's just a very solid card, right? I don't consider him like an S tier category card by any means, but you have to understand that it would have been nice had they have given him the premium link. But it's still a good SBC. Obviously, if you're getting links to players like Nkunku and then Modric, because you're using Modric as your attacking oriented center mid, there's variables to work with there in the top tier divisions that people will definitely do for sure. Next up, Martial. Martial I'm going to put above a Guendouzi as well. I liked Martial's card. I liked him a little bit more when I gave him the Shadow Chemistry style. I will admit, I don't think he's a 1 million coin card. Definitely not a 1 million coin card in my opinion, because of a few variables, right? So this card on a Shadow Chemistry style, whether you're using him in the center mid position or as your attacking oriented CDM, he does play the position pretty well, just nowhere near to the extent of someone like De Jong, right? I think De Jong is very, very different in regards to the way that he performs in game. I think De Jong is significantly better because they formatted him in a better light, right? Obviously, with De Jong, you could give him a Hunter Chemistry style. He already has the base card stats for defense. Whereas this card, you can give him a Hunter Chemistry style, but some of the defensive stuff could be on the lower side depending on how you end up using him, right? With De Jong, it's mid-90s and up for pretty much everything, which is really nice. But yeah, Martial was pretty decent. You know what I liked the most when he was like my attacking-oriented midfielder was the traits, right? So I think on 3 different occasions scored a finesse shot with him, because what's really cool about this card is the 5-star weak foot on the left-hand side while working with the right foot on the right-hand side to pop in those finesse shots, right? So I definitely enjoyed working with that. whenever I had the opportunity. But like I said, definitely not a 1 million coin card. I think 1 million coins is a little bit of a stretch for him, but it's still a very nice card to get in game, obviously, if you need the links or you need that sort of midfielder in that position. Martinez, I don't mind adding into the A tier as well. Another card that I feel like EA definitely could have done a better job with when it comes to the links. I'm gonna add Martinez in the A B tier just because, like, looking at Giroud and then looking at Martinez. The only reason why I'm gonna add him into the B tier is mainly because links are very hard to get for this card, right? Like for him specifically, in game, he's pretty decent, right? On a shadow chemistry style, he's a taller player. He's got the defensive stats, he's got the pace, and he's got the base physical. It's a pretty decent card to use. Like, I actually didn't mind him whatsoever, right? He's 4-star, shadow chemistry style is great. But if people are trying to make some different squads and they don't necessarily have a Premier League team, let's take a look at some of the links, right? So let's go to Nations, and then we go to Argentina, and then League, and then we go to the Premier League, right? So by default, at this point in the game, not meta enough, right? You need a new Martinez card. That would be like or not Martinez, excuse me. You need a new Alvarez card, a new one, which I don't know if EA is going to ever add that. It's going to be a really big variable to work with. And then you also need a new Enzo Fernandez card too. But it's not a type of SBC where you put in the risk and then it's like worth the reward if you don't want to wait that long. You know what I'm saying? That's the type of situation. But there is also the other variable that if you are considering, Argentinian center backs in general, then he's obviously going to be top. So I don't mind the card. I think he's actually like pretty decent. B tier is definitely fair because of the links. I think if the links was better, it would definitely be like an A tier card. Definitely not an S tier for sure. But yeah, he's a card that like was actually pretty decent. Like his height was very, very helpful to work with in game. But I'm gonna put him like this. I think that's okay. It's like this. It's like this with those two, Okay, Milinkovic-Savic, S tier for value of the card as well as performance in game, right? So Milinkovic-Savic, I'm gonna add those two variables, and you know what the other variable I'm gonna add too? The other variable I'm gonna add is the fun variable, okay? Because you're not gonna often hear me call cards nowadays fun, because cards literally need to be full meta just for you to be able to move properly, okay? But Milinkovic-Savic is a card that you can genuinely use in any of the attacking positions. You can. Yeah, I'm not even joking when I say this. You can actually use him in any of the attacking positions, any of the midfield positions, and any of the defensive positions, because the way that they formatted him on a lengthy, right? So you can give him a hunter, use him as the player on the right-hand side, because obviously strong foot on the strong side as much as possible, and potentially go for crosses, right? If you go for crosses for a card like this, if you're playing like let's say you're playing like a 4-3-2-1 and you're using him as a right forward, you'd actually be okay in that position. You would just have to work with the left stick dribbling sometimes because of the agility and bounce, but his physical is nuts, right? Then, if you want to use him as your main CDM or your stay back cover center mid, you could do that as well. If you want to rotate him from center mid to the center back position, you can also do that. 6'8", high and average body type with the jumping capabilities. His heading is phenomenal to work with because he also has the power header traits while working with the outside foot shot. So WSBC, definitely an SBC that most people should pick up because he also gives you links with anybody, right? So obviously that is a huge variable to work with. And if you do want to work with the Milinkovic-Savic brothers, nice little link set up there as well. So yeah, Milinkovic-Savic, definitely going to add him into the S tier. I think the price of the SBC was awesome. I don't look at the top tier for the S tier too much because these cards are all very, very good. Except for Garincha. Garincha, I'm going to put a little bit at the end in a way. Yeah. Anywho's, next up we have is Manuel Neuer's card. Neuer is a physical type striker. Do not mind adding him into the A tier category as well. A tier category as well. This card, as a physical type striker, is actually pretty decent to use in game. I don't know if you guys actually ended up getting his loan card, but he is pretty solid. I liked him on a lengthy. I like the way that he would come in on the attack. Obviously, it's a different type of playstyle for this type of card because of the physical aspect to him. But once you provide him with, a physical boost in the card, whatever chemistry style you would decide to go with because of his physical stats already being very high. He is a very good physical type striker. He's got the skill moves, the weak foot is there as well. So using a card like this, you know, in the striker position definitely played off really nicely. I actually wouldn't mind using a card like this over in the right mid position if I didn't specifically require the defensive stats, right? So putting him in that area is pretty decent enough for me. Both of Petit's cards I'm going to put into the B tier. I could see some people using the card. I wouldn't necessarily call them A tier category cards, but they are pretty decent for what they are. So with Petit by default, right? One thing that I do want to mention, okay, with this card right here and specifically, is if you use him, I would actually highly recommend using him at CDM. Okay, at CDM, he's actually pretty decent. So if you could do that same thing like I was mentioning with Doozy, where you can rotate him into that CDM position, he's actually pretty decent there. Because again, situation like this, you can see that most people are giving him the shadow chemistry style just for the extra defensive stats, even if it's like small variables here and there. This card is meant to defend for you, and at 95 acceleration, 94 for sprint speed in the CDM position specifically, okay, if you can rotate him there, he actually performs really well there for the most part, right? But you have to do that little rotation thing there, and obviously he's not a lengthy player. Not being a lengthy by default in the center back position, I personally would not want to use the card, right? That's just a thing by default. Like, you have to at least have a lengthy nowadays. You just have to, okay? So I actually wouldn't mind adding the Petit card a little bit higher, but I don't mind adding him into the B tier category for now as well. It's one of those types of situations for sure. The other Petit card, I also tried out for a little bit too because everyone packed this card. I was using him as the attacking oriented center mid, and in that position he can play okay, right? Some things that are a little bit off of the card, obviously with the weak foot being at a 3-star, you have to work with that a little bit, but it's a little bit of a stretch because as a physical type midfielder, he still plays that general area really well, right? You don't necessarily need the skill move on a consistent basis because in his case, he is a left-footed player on the left-hand side. So that's a huge variable to work with if you're using a 4-3-2-1 where he is the attacking-oriented player there, right? So very similar situation to Adeyemi. You know, there's some trade-offs here and there with these types of cards. Like I said with Petit, I wouldn't mind adding him into the A tier because in the CDM position, he actually plays that area pretty decently, right? Pretty decently. Okay, so Richarlison's card, A tier category as well. They did a good job with this card to make him as usable as possible. If they didn't make Richarlison 5-star, he would be a little bit annoying to work with. But because they gave him that massive improvement, see, I even called it in the review that he's probably going to keep going down in price because of his in-game quality. But this card, they did a pretty decent job with, because with Richarlison, guys, you are specifically supposed to be using him in the sided position. So if you're playing like a 4-4-2, 4-2-3-1, that type of deal, it is more ideal to use a card like this in that side area, right? So if I'm playing like a right mid, you know, 4-4-2, that one specifically, because 4-2-3-1, if you're playing a 4-2-3-1, it is still better to have players, in my opinion, that are explosive and stuff, because the way that they commit into the attacking plays is just significantly better, right? So Vitinha was a very good example of what I mentioned in the tier list video, as well as the review, where on the explosive, with a Hunter chemistry style, the card performs really well in that area. A card like this, honestly, performs in the left mid position really well too. Personally, I think explosive players are great. But with Richarlison, it was really important that they improved the stats of the card as much as they did. But a major factor with Richarlison that throws him off a lot of times is obviously his average body type. His average body type really, I wouldn't say it really brings down the quality of the card, but it does bring it down a little bit, right? His average does mess with the card a little bit, but obviously another card that I would see being used in the top tier divisions, especially in those side areas, once they provide him with the Hawk chemistry style. So putting him in the A tier, I do not mind as well. Riquelme, I also did not use, so I'm not going to give an opinion on him. Seedorf, didn't use him either, so I'm going to put that there. And then for Zaha's card, also going to be an A tier category card. You guys will actually see me using Zaha. In which review was that? It might have been Conte. I think in the Conte video I was using Zaha, and I never ended up doing the review for this card. I do apologize. It's the reason why I don't do reviews for the card sometimes, guys, is because this gameplay is atrocious. You guys know this. So the motivation sometimes is not there. But when I was using Zaha in the positions that you're supposed to use him in, the card was actually pretty cool to use, right? Because what's important with Zaha's card is the fact that he already has base card stats for pace. So In the right back position, first of all, it's a premium shapeshifters card. So if you need link ups to certain players, you can actually do that. So you see the Martinez card, for instance. Martinez is a card that you can get a link with because this Zaha exists. You know what I'm saying? So if you needed to put them in the squad, that brings up the value a little bit with Martinez, and Zaha's card went up in value as well when Martinez dropped because people wanted that link to work with. So if you're going to be doing something like that and you're using this card in the right back position, obviously pretty decent. For me personally, I feel like he is best utilized as a player playing in the right mid position for a 3-back formation. You know that 3-4-1-2 tactic that I showed you guys not too long ago, right? The one I reviewed from the pro player that's like 160-0, where you have like the defensive oriented player playing in the cam position. In my opinion, you're supposed to use this card in 2 different ways, right? So you'll see people give him a backbone, a sentinel. For me personally, I think whatever chemistry style gives him that defense and what backbone. Let me see what it gives to interceptions and stuff. Hold on. Backbone. I don't remember what it was on Guillau's account that he had on him. Jumping is still on the lower side. Jumping will be annoying. That's a huge one because when people do the far post crosses, like, yeah, that's a big one. Imagine like Milinkovic-Savic going up against this guy, you know? It wasn't that one. It was Gladiator, I think. Yeah. So if you provide this card with like a Gladiator chemistry style and you boost his defense as much as you are, as well as the shooting capabilities, this card in that right mid position for that 3-4-1-2 formation is really nice because you can even rotate him if you have to, playing in that right attacking mid position too, if you're switching like the 4-2-3-1 or something, or you're using him as like any attacking oriented center mid. It's a pretty decent card. I actually enjoyed using him in game. I think EA did a really good job with him. Defended pretty well for me for the most part. I will say that when it comes to playing him in the actual right back position, I have used better right backs personally when it comes to defensive animations and whatnot, but they did a good job with this card. It's definitely an A tier category card in my opinion. He does perform pretty well for the most part, but yeah, I'm sorry if I missed out on any of the cards. When it comes to the S tier category, guys, Garin is the only one I would maybe argue a little bit into the high tier A tier category, but he's still very good. But he should, it's one of those should perform better in game than what it actually looks like. Value of the SBC for these 2 cards right here, insane. De Jong, I absolutely loved. And then these 3 is undisputable S tier, right? A tier, I wouldn't look into the row too much in regards to who you should or shouldn't use. Like I said, with Doozy, I wouldn't mind arguing into the high tier B category, but as a 5-star character, as a 5-star card, it really brings them up a little bit to an A tier, right? But it would be like a combination between the 2, and the rest of it, I'm perfectly fine with doing it as it is. So yeah, I'm okay with this tier list, guys. I'm okay with what it looks like. I'm okay with who I put in the S tier, A tier, B tier, personally. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video today. I will catch you guys for the next one. Guys, thanks for supporting the YouTube channel as you normally do. I'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace out, dudes. Love you guys.